Without further ado, I would like to introduce to you the Republican congressional candidate for the 11th District of New Jersey, Joseph Belnome. Hello. Thank you for being here with us tonight. For those who are unfamiliar with the parameters of Congressional District 11, this district includes Morris, Essex, and Passaic counties. So we're excited to introduce to you to the AIPAC community and are so grateful that you had the time to jump on with us tonight. I'm going to hand over the microphone to you because one of the biggest reasons for having you on tonight is to let our viewers know who their options are and a little bit more about you. So if you could start off with who you are, your professional life, things personally about yourself outside of politics.
So outside of politics, so I'm 49 years old, single. My parents immigrated here from Sicily. I'm a first generation American here. My dad was a bricklayer, a union bricklayer. I became a union bricklayer. He was a bricklayer until he had an injury that retired him. Soon after that, I left being a bricklayer and worked for the township of Belleville. That's where I live, and that's where I grew up, in Belleville, New Jersey. And I started working for the Department of Public Works, and now I work in the building department, and I'm a code enforcement officer.
Excellent. So what would you say was the catapult that brought you to decide to run for Congress, and why now?
Well, so Trump came down that escalator and, the things he said resonated with me. And I've been very, very involved in that since. No, so I'm a Republican. I've been a Republican. In my township, I am in the Republican committee, Essex County Republican Committee, and I'm a district leader. And as far as politics, I've worked on some local campaigns for mayor and Board of Ed. And I never really had thought for running. But then, I felt that Trump running and during his administration, I felt that he opened my eyes to a lot of things. I felt that our government was being weaponized. Somehow, okay, so I got to this point. Last year, as you know, I ran for state senate. Mm-hmm. Now, even that, I wasn't even thinking of running for office or for our local legislature. I didn't even know much about it. But I got my primary ballot in the mail, the sample ballot. So you look at it to see who's running, which you usually don't even know who they are for the state legislature. And it was blank. So I made a decision to run a write-in campaign, which I only had a few days to do before the election, between the primary sample ballot and the election day. So I was able to win that. I was able to get enough people to come out and write my name down on the ballot. It's very hard to do that. And, people spell your name wrong. They put it in the wrong spot or whatever the reasons are. But I did win that. And then I understand. Sometimes you want to blame the party. Why didn't you put someone up? Well, someone didn't decide to run is one thing. And, if the party ends up, asking people to run, they're kind of, they have to help that person, like, hey, you asked me to run, I need support. And they probably just felt it was not a winnable district. So I came along and I ran. And I believe that I earned a lot of respect in the party, someone who just came as an outsider, decided to run. And I campaigned my butt off, I didn't just want to be a name on the ballot. I made it a mission to tell people, show people who I am. I mean, I had about 6 towns I had to get my name out there. And, unfortunately, it was a year that there was no governor on the ballot. There's no president on the ballot. So it's a very low turnout year. And in a district where there's 89,000 registered Democrats and about like 15,000 registered Republicans, they did consider it impossible, but I never treated it that way. And I had a really great turnout. I got like half the Republicans out. My opponent got like a small, like maybe 17,000 votes out of our 89,000. And that was last year. So what catapulted me to this year I never really wanted to run for Congress either. I mean, this is even bigger thing. They're like, people are like, why don't you start low? I don't know. I never really wanted to start high either, but here I am. Now I'm very aligned with Trump. This is a year that there's going to be a big turnout. Trump's on the ballot, so it's more favorable to me. And in this district, as far as congressional compared to the state legislature district, it's easier actually. The electorate is more, it works out better. It's still a hard race, and I have a tough opponent, but that's what brought me here today. Yeah.
Okay, great. So there was a question that you're in District 11. Your running mate is Mickey Sherrill. I just wanted to add that, when I met Joe I think the first time I met you in person was when you accepted our invitation and joined us at our gala. So you were present for that and got to meet many people who care about this issue as well. I'm sure, through COVID and the time that, if I know you follow us pretty closely. But in addition to that, do you have any life experiences or personal testimonies that you can share that may have shaped your positions for health freedom and parental rights?
Yeah. Well, by the way, that was a very wonderful gala, and I really appreciate getting your endorsement last year. And I was surprised to be at a table with mostly Democrats too, because we all kind of live in a bubble sometimes on whichever party we are at, and obviously this is a nonpartisan issue for many people. But getting to my my life experience, my uncle, he's gone now. We lost him back in 2014. He had cancer, and I was looking for ways. I was doing my own research. If someone in your family gets sick, we're not doctors, right? We start doing research on how we can help them or where we can get treatments for them. I learned more about medical marijuana, and I know some people were talking about it could be a cure. I didn't really buy into it being a cure, but definitely had medical a purpose. Something that could give him some comfort. And I experienced firsthand, the difficulties in New Jersey, as opposed to maybe some other states, it was to get the marijuana. And at the time, you had to become a healthcare giver, a provider, whatever, for the person that you want to help. It's usually a family member. So I had to go through the steps. You have to find a certain type of doctor, and you have to go a certain amount of times, and then eventually they give you a card that says you're able to buy the marijuana at a dispensary, which you're going to have, I think 2 in the state at the time. And finally, I was able to buy him some, and I tried creating an oil, like an oil based of it, and that didn't really work for him, and he didn't like it, and I couldn't force him to take anything, obviously. So he was willing to try things to give him some comfort. And then I never smoked marijuana, I never smoked cigarettes, but I had a friend roll a joint for him. And he used that, and it helped. It was definitely helpful. It gave him some comfort. He was able to have a little bit of an appetite. He was able to sleep, and it was something that it worked. So that was my experience with that.
So you're showing an example of regulatory captures and practices that you had to go through to have access to an alternative method.
Yeah.
Good. So I also wanted to ask, sorry guys, I'm having issues with my computer, so my hands are going to be in the screen. So the people watching, many of whom are advocates who stay very close to health freedom in the state and almost daily see threats on our state and a global level. So there's threats of new exploding viruses, tightening of pandemic preparedness tactics. How do you view the government's role in personal health decisions? What limits do you believe should be placed on a government intervention in health matters?
Well, I think that people can make their own health decisions based on, so the government their role should be to provide clear information and access to healthcare. Now, they should not be mandating an experimental vaccine or force you to wear a mask or shutdown, do a shutdown of the country. What we've experienced during the pandemic, when the government is given that type of control, they abuse it, and we lose our freedoms. So, and let me add to that, I don't think that a global entity like the World Health Organization should ever dictate any laws that we have in our country as well.
Fair enough. As I know that you're aware, New Jersey Bill A1884, sponsored by Assemblyman Herb Conaway, who's also running for Congress in the 3rd District, establishes the act of disseminating misinformation as professional misconduct for healthcare professionals. Just yesterday, another example, that's the bill, but just yesterday I wanted to add that fluoride in water was ruled by a federal judge to pose unreasonable risks to children. But for so long, that claim had been denied. So I'm just throwing that in as an example of how, there's so many examples between, smoking, lobotomies, you can go on. And there's so many other facets to that particular bill. But it is our belief and will that doctors should be able to grow in their transparency, not get quieter, but louder, giving true informed consent. So do you back this notion that healthcare professionals have the duty to give true informed consent about their treatment options and associated risks, even if that goes outside of the mainstream consensus?
Well, yes, short answer, yes. And even with that example, the word that stuck out to me when you said all of that was misinformation, or the consensus as another word. What we've found out today, what's misinformation today is tomorrow's truth. And who's deciding what the consensus is? Is it the pharmaceutical company, or the people that they're paying off to decide what a consensus is? Doctors should be loud. They should be providing patients with the information and the risk factors on things that they've learned on the job. I know a doctor, they graduate medical school, but the learning doesn't stop there. Once they're on the job, now they're treating people. What can work for one person might not work for another person. This is, if they want to go by that standard, and there's a certain protocol that the government's trying to push, if you give a medicine or a vaccine or something to one patient, they die. The next patient comes in and says, well, this killed that guy, but this is what they're calling for. No, we don't want to live in a society like that. And that's kind of like where we're headed. So, yeah. So the answer is I do back that notion.
For sure. This, that issue, censorship, silencing, we've seen it in so many other areas in New Jersey law and in across the nation and world. So this is just, strong holding the medical professionals. And it actually got some clarity that the healthcare professionals, the term healthcare professionals, not just doctors, not just nurses, chiropractors, therapists, like you name it, it's the full gamut. So, if anyone, everyone watching, just please stay connected to us for the next steps on what to do. And, there's the call to actions on all of our social media. And if you're receiving our emails, you should have gotten that as well. But reach out to us if not, if you're looking for answers on what to do to help stop that bill. And so in light of the fact that 74% of our nation's children are ailed with at least one form of chronic illness and a current medical establishment that is failing them, how do you view access? We kind of talked about this, but how do you view access to alternative and complementary health treatments? Would you support legislation that allows patients to have access and medical freedom to explore those options?
Yeah, I would support federal legislation for that, sure. And that does, like when you say we talked about that, like maybe with my uncle, and
Yeah.
that reminds me of right to try. That's something that Trump has pushed forward, and it's something that any parents here that they have children and they've done their own research, like I did with my uncle. You look into those things, and you want to have a doctor that's open to do those things and give you the information, the facts that you need, and the risk factors. And so, yeah, I would support
Yeah.
legislation for that. Sure.
It's not a typical direction that we in the PAC have had the opportunity to kind of cross, but it is, the right to have informed consent, know what your options are. The way that the health system is set up right now, we don't, medical, there's not a, integrative is coming, you see it more prevalent, but most are pretty separate between your alternative and your functional, and then your mainstream doctors. So, but with the Trump administration possibilities and what he's planning and agreeing to with Robert F. Kennedy and the big push they have to save our children and improve our health, I think it's something that was worth discussing. Okay, so another bill that we helped leverage a call to action to recently would make way for federally qualified school-based healthcare centers in the schools. This bill is happening. We're seeing it happen in other states. So there's like this federal push for that. So I think that it's appropriate to bring it up with you. And they're federally qualified clinics that would be implemented. And this is far from comforting to many New Jersey families. As we know, the federal government has a poor track record in establishing healthcare when $4.5 trillion a year is spent for what I would more accurately describe as sick care. Parents view school-based health clinics as a place where medical suggestions and persecutions could be made, which is yet another attempt to put a wedge between the parent and the child. What are your thoughts on that bill and that objective?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like my state Senate run last year. I mean, one of my biggest campaign focuses was parental rights, and I was, a big supporter of parental rights. When you have these individuals in the schools, or if they want to make one of these health-based or some type of anyone who's trying to influence your children without a parental consent, because it's saying that maybe this is like that other question. That's the consensus, or this children are not able to make these type of decisions, and their parents need to be involved. Your brain is not fully developed until you're 25 years old, and I know that some parents are not 25 years old yet. They have children in school, but at least it would be an adult's decision, over their child, and that might come in the form of vaccines, but also something that we're seeing. It's like a social contagion of this trans movement. Now, what's happening across the country is, years ago, what would be considered a tomboy, a girl that's a tomboy, these days, a medical professional or other students that are going through some type of transition might convince that girl, no, you're a boy in a girl's body. That's why you like to play sports or whatever, that's why you like to dress a certain way. And what's happening is, with this social contagion and with the assistance of these school, school guidance counselors, doctors, who knows, or teachers, or whatever they're trying to figure out with these kids, asking them what's their gender and all this kind of stuff. That child is, and they want to keep this secret from the parent, and they might start some kind of, gender affirming care. Maybe start that girl on a hormone.
Yeah, I think that, just to interrupt, because I'm seeing a question in here. I think that in order to do that, you would have, if the child was under 18, you would have to get parental consent before administering anything. That it is in the law. But I think that the concern really is that the suggestions and persuasions of a student going into that clinic, and then also, when it comes to the like pandemic, is like, imagine if all New Jersey schools had a school-based healthcare clinic 3 years ago. And the rush to get everybody vaccinated, the access. How many children today would have been vaccinated with the COVID vaccine?
Just about all of them.
Yeah, when we know,
Because,
like
right.
the
You had a media saying it was 90-something% effective, and if you get it, you won't get COVID. So why wouldn't you get it? You know, it's perfectly safe. But you know, whoever was saying that that's not allowed, we're headed there. You know, is it allowed in California? Can they do that in California and not get the parents' consent? Because that's where we're headed. So we don't want to get that far. So that's something that I'd be against, and that's
well, and
something
that's another point. So we're seeing the erosion of the age, like the ages are dropping for consent. There was a bill that has not moved, put up by assemblymen a couple of years back to lower the age of consent for vaccinations to 14. And you know, there's the mental health bill that there's another mental health bill now, but there was one to lower the age from I think 16 to 14. So there is an erosion happening with the parental rights and a barrier that just keeps getting thicker.
Absolutely. And you know, 14, your mind's not fully developed to make those type of decisions, life altering decisions. So that with that erosion, they're going to keep making it younger, and the pharmaceutical company is going to like that too, because they're going to sell more vaccines. So they want
more profit. It's all about the profit.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's scary because in all respects, I say this all the time, I have a thimerosal allergy. So thimerosal, mercury, I don't know if it came on later in life, but more recently I found out. But let's say one of my children had it. There would be no indication that they did. And up until now, let's say, and they go and think at 14, my mom doesn't know what I'm talking about. She's too involved in this. She, you know, I want it. I'm going to go get it. And then they have a reaction to something, you know, so there's
plenty of
my doctor was my mom's pediatrician. She was my pediatrician, you know, she knew our ins and outs. And I just think that there's a detachment bringing in a clinic into the school. It's not like the school nurse giving you a Band-Aid, letting you lie down for a little while. It's a full clinic of assessments and anything else like that. And they're popping up in New Jersey. I just saw an article come through my phone right before this call. There's one in Newark. So it's something they're moving ahead with. But all right, let's move on. I want to give you the floor for a little bit of time to tell us about, you know, it's a very pivotal election, November 5th. Tuesday, November 5th is the final date to vote, but there's early election, there's mail-in ballots, and you know, there's a lot of people that are concerned about the validity of the election. But from what everybody I've spoken to in the political realm, it's just about getting out to vote and flooding the polls and making it irrefutable. So, but I wanted to hear from you a little bit about your district, your campaigning, how's that going for you, and what's your pathway to victory?
Well, you know, my campaign focus is restoring government integrity and protecting constitutional rights. I'm running against a congresswoman who represents a Congress that's failed to secure our borders and responsible for the biggest inflationary spending in our country's history. Now, my biggest challenge, I would say, is her position and her you know, financial backing. But with me, with my my name recognition in the district, running last year, my moniker of Jersey Joe, people know me that way. And with the endorsements of all three counties of the district, with the now pair that with my huge primary win, I won with 87% of the votes in a three-man race. It was the highest margin in the state in a contested race, Democrat or Republican. And now having Donald Trump on the top of the ballot and being aligned with Trump, I'm optimistic. You know, then you pair that also with frustrations that are in the certain communities. People can't afford things, the way foreign affairs are being dealt with around the world. there's opportunity there. And for my opponent, I feel that there is definitely vulnerabilities.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. And we would like to give you our viewers give our viewers a sense of what you stand for and what you will advocate for as a representative. What are some of the reasons people are coming out for you, Joe?
Well, not to be repetitive, but to restore integrity, because people have lost trust in our government, in all facets of our government. There's in our justice system, in our borders, the way they're putting Americans last. I support, law and order. I want to make energy. I want to make America energy independent. I want to reduce inflation. I want to cut taxes. And how about no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime? Those are all winning messages. And yeah, that's the type of things I stand for: freedom, and yeah, that's the answer.
Great. So let's move on to some quick fire questions. It's a great way for our community and yours to get to know you a little bit more. I'm just going to pick a couple here. What was your first paying job?
I worked at a pizzeria washing dishes. It's called the Ray's Classic Pizza in Belleville for $3 an hour. And then I quit. And then they said, come back, we'll give you $4 an hour. So then I came back for a little while, and then I quit that again.
That's awesome.
I couldn't be stuck back in that kitchen washing dishes.
I know where you live, and I know they have some great restaurants. So this is going to be really tough. And you just gave a shout out to Ray's Pizza. But what would you say your current favorite restaurant in district? So it could be maybe outside of where you live.
Oh, right. Yeah, probably my favorite's outside. But Ray's Classic Pizza doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
That was where that was. There is different Ray's Pizza. I would have to say the Belmont Tavern, and it's in my town. And, it's a historic spot. It's a landmark location. Belmont Tavern. The food's great. It's hard to find a seat, so it's an easy answer.
That's great. Here's a fun one. What was the last TV series you watched?
The full series, I'd probably say The 100. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. I think it was a Netflix series. Not to really dive too much into it, but it's in outer space. It's like a sci-fi thing where people are living on a space station because Earth became inhabitable from some kind of nuclear explosions. But then they ended up sending 100 of their children down to see if it was safe again, and it just evolved from there. And it was just so many life and death situations, and it was very unexpected, and it really kept my interest until the end of it. So it's
a little sci-fi, little sci-fi, a little dystopian, a little possible ability there. Okay. So lastly, we always end with this question. I think it's probably the most important, but what does medical freedom mean to you?
Oh, I feel like I even answered that already, probably. But
in summary,
yeah, sure. I mean, it's in the name, freedom. It's the freedom to have the information you need to make informed decisions on your health. It's the freedom of your doctor to give you that information, and without the risk of being accused of medical malpractice. And it's the freedom of not being forced to take an experimental vaccine or any type of protocol that the government deems you need without your consent.
Excellent. Well, again, the reason why we do this platform is to create a ripple effect, an echo of these messages, and from your mouth to God's ears to everywhere. We hope that with this work that becomes a reality, continued reality. So we have run out of time, and I wanted to thank you for, on the behalf of myself and my board of NJ5PAC. And, again, thank you for your voice, for your time, and we wish you the best of luck with your race.
Let's tell people how to learn more about me.
Oh, yes. Okay, please do that.
So hopefully your viewers can, you see my votejerseyjoe.com is where you can visit my website. Hopefully you like what I said and want me to win. You can make a donation tonight, and you can learn more about me. And please come out and vote. Vote, vote early is what I'll suggest. And bring 10 friends with you to go vote, and just pester them to make sure they voted, because every vote counts. Don't think that just because we're worried about our election integrity that it won't count. We need to flood the polls. We need to make it too big to rig, and we need to make America great again.
Thank you for getting that in.
Yeah.
Well, thank you to everybody for staying dialed in. It is not only advantageous, but imperative to have a strong representation in New Jersey and our country. Our future and our children's future depends on it. Please, once again, visit our website at njphipac.org and consider a contribution. 100% of our contributions goes to meetings and elevating candidates and incumbents for the greater good of health freedom for our families and loved ones and yours. See you next time, and the PAC chat. Thank you.